Alright, welcome back. It's been a week or so giving the shellac a good amount of time to dry. And it looks really good. I will say that. It looks incredibly good. It's only going to improve here. So what I'm doing, first and foremost, is I got to get the bleed through that went under the binding mask. I knew there'd be some. This isn't a surprise. So I'm just taking a razor blade and very gently just scraping the dye, the red color, off of the parts of the binding that should not be red. And then after that I'll take a real light, maybe a buff for sanding. I'm probably going to use Scotch-Brite or something like that to just get this a little smoother. The back of the neck is really smooth because of the pore filler, but there was no pore filler on the maple, so it's a little rougher than the neck is. So I'm going to try to get those things uniform and then be ready to start with the lacquer coats. So I'm going to pull you in closer so you can see the scraping process. It'll be a slow process, but a lot of lightweight care to be taken. So we'll bring you in and show you that. Okay, so you can see right in here we've got a little bleed over, so I'm going to just very gently, I'm barely putting any pressure. I'm actually not putting pressure. I'm holding some of the weight of the blade up. And this seems to be working pretty well. It's just tedious, as some of the detail processes can be. But we'll just scrape away the red that should not be there. And then, you know, very carefully take very gentle passes here. Every once in a while, clean off the razor blade. Alright, all the binding has been scraped nice and clean. Next step is some sanding, just some very light. This is 400 grit on a foam pad, so it's kind of smushy. And we're really barely going to touch this. I'm just going to feel what that feels like. Yep, that's enough. That is more than. And we'll just barely scuff this. I'm giving it a little bit of pressure, but otherwise just very little touch, very light touch. I'm not putting a lot of, not going to abrade much, just a little, just enough to get what feels a little bit rough. It all feels right. I don't want to go through the shellac, and I don't want to touch, especially don't want to touch the color. Just knocking those little burry nibs down. Just to get it smooth. And we're going to do the back of the neck too, so it's all homogeneous. We're going to take it over and hang it back on the hook and get ready to put sanding sealer down. Alright, here we go. Alright, well, we've got ourselves a bit of a redneck tent is what we've got here. Just a bunch of plastic keeping the dust out as best I can. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a fan blowing air from across the room over through the area to help pull some clean air through. I've got it tacked off, and we're ready to apply the lacquer sanding sealer. You can't see me, I'm over here. The next steps are going to be pretty much me under the tent in a respirator, so I'm going to lose the mic and just spray away. Alright, so I don't have my mic on, but you can see there was a problem. See the... You'll probably be able to see it better when I'm getting closer, but I broke my rule. I didn't test on scrap this sanding sealer product and lacquer product, and I'm biting myself in the butt for that one. This was a stupid idea. So I think what happened, I don't know if you can see them yet. Can you see them? Let's see. Can you see the little white splotchy dots all over it? Well, it's a bunch of dried stuff. It dried too fast, which is the problem of my gun. You saw I said I was going to use the airbrush. Well, I had this white stuff happening on a little piece of quick scrap that I used, and it looked like that. So I switched to the critter, and you saw me using the critter. Critter had the same problem. I think what happened was it wasn't pushing enough material out, and it was too much air, and it would almost be dry before it actually hit the surface. So you can see how it's streaky, like see you can see the lines I was using. I was making passes with, because I was getting closer and closer, trying to lay it down thicker. That also made the pattern smaller. So what I ended up with is a mess that I'm going to have to sand off, and that's just all there is to that. I'm going to have to sand that all off. It looks like crap. Thankfully, it's sanding sealer and it's designed to get sanded, but it just means I need a better application. I need to apply it better. I need a better means of applying it. I'm going to bring out my other guns I've got and try those. I may also try thinning the sealer a bit. There may be enough on there, but I'm going to go with another light coat once I figure out and dial in the gun. So I'll bring you back once I've sanded this thing smooth, because you guys don't need to see me sanding anymore. You don't need to see me sanding anymore. And I'm going to dial in whatever gun I end up using to make this work. But I'll bring you back when the next coat of sanding sealer goes on. Okay, well, in the usual fashion of not testing first, we've learned a lesson, as it always happens. So I broke through the hell of my neck like crazy. Can you see here? Burnt through all the color when I was sanding away on the sanding sealer. The rest of the body is fine, but the neck looks like poopy. Check it out. That looks like crap, don't it? It's because it's missing all its red. So I am now in recovery mode of this. I'm going to put red on and basically try to blend things back in. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be better than that. So that's what we're doing next. That's how it goes. So, I've cut you out of the loop a little bit, and I apologize for that. This is my least favorite part of the process. I hate finishing. I even more hate coloring wood artificially. So this part is always a challenge. It's why we went through several steps on the coloring process. It's the part that I hate, and I have to do it in small fits and spurts, or I get in a hurry and I rush it and I screw something up. Incidentally, that's exactly what the last thing you saw was. I had inadvertently, when I was putting the sanding sealer on, it messed up the sanding sealer because I did not test to begin with. And so I learned my own lesson, practice on scrap. But in order to get it right, I had to sand off all that bumpy stuff. So when in the process of sanding that bumpy stuff off, I sanded through the color quite badly on the neck. And so you saw me refinishing that, recoloring that, getting the tint back in the red of the neck. Got that in. It's okay now. I can see where it is, but I think when the sanding sealer goes on, I'm going to be much happier with that. And in that process, I went through and I colored it and put the shellac back on, which you saw last. And so now we're at the stage where I let it dry for a good solid week, and then I've sanded this down to about 400 grit, I think it is. And you can kind of, I don't know if you can see from there, but I took some pictures. I'll post them if they showed up all right. It's cloudy, and that's just from the 400 grit sandpaper on the sanding sealer. And the sanding sealer is still a little bit pitty, but I started going through the color on the body, and I stopped there. I didn't want to make that. I didn't want to have to redo the whole color on the body, so I didn't. And so it's good now, I think, and I've got the right gun to spray the right sealer the right way. And I've got this little scrap here of my wiring glue up and my various testing stuff. So I'm going to spray on that first and see how it does. But at this point, I think we're ready to complete the sanding sealer part of this. It's had a week to dry, and so the instructions and everywhere I've been reading says you don't do the sanding sealer very far apart from at least your first coat or two of lacquer. So within an hour or two, you want to get the first coat of lacquer on after the sanding sealer goes on. Well, it's been a week, so this stuff is way too dry, and the lacquer probably won't stick to it. So in all ritualistic voodoo and whatnot for finishing, I've decided we'll lay, and I've read this too, you can lay another coat of sanding sealer, just a thin coat of sanding sealer down, and that will bond to the old sanding sealer just fine, because it's kind of like a lacquer, I guess. It's a vinyl sanding sealer, but apparently it burns into previous coats, and then the lacquer will burn into the fresh sanding sealer coat. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to really quickly lay a thin coat of sanding sealer on this, go in and eat lunch, come back and sand everything down, and then we'll start with the lacquer. So we're almost there. I'm just methodically taking my pace again the way I should have done in the first place. So I'm gonna mask up, and we'll be back with the sanding, or with the sealer spraying. Alright, so that's the sanding sealer is done. It's been about an hour now, and we're just going to come in and lightly scuff with some 400 grit lubricated with some mineral spirits as per the instructions. And it's looking pretty good. It's getting there. It's still got a little bit of an orange peel to it, but that's okay now because I'm going to buff all that stuff out. So we're going to get after this. It's going to be kind of boring footage, so I'm just going to speed you up and have at it. Alright, we're all sanded nicely to 400 grit and wiped off, so now I'm just going to let the mineral spirits flash off a little here so it's not quite as full strength here, and we're ready to start putting on a coat of lacquer next. It's looking good. I'm pleased with how it's coming out. I see some things, but they're probably only going to be things that I see, so I'm not going to freak out too much. The really obvious stuff that was bad is now fixed. There was some burn through up in here, and it's gone now. You can't even tell. I couldn't even tell you where it was. There was a little burn through right in this area. That's gone too, so that looks nice. And the neck blend is better. The repair of the color on the neck it blended in better than I was expecting it to, so I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to let this air out a little bit and get ready to put some lacquer down. It'll be the first coat, and we've still got a tiny bit of orange peel here, but I think I need to build some coats first, and then I can address that stuff. But yeah, so far it's looking really good. I'm pleased. We're coming right along. We're almost done. Okay, I have my lacquer. This will be first coat. I'm sorry for the messy audio here, but I am Bane. You have my permission to die. Anyway, here we go. Okay, so that was the first coat of lacquer. It's been about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And it's been about 2 hours almost. And it's well and truly dry enough for the next coat to go on. And it looks gorgeous. So this is light on the back. I went a little thin, but the front I went a little heavy on, and it is looking freaking awesome. So we're getting close. I just need to make sure I'm more judicious about my light passes, my heaviness of coats, so to speak. So we're gonna wipe things down a little bit. I think I might have got a little dust on things, but it's ready for the next coat number 2. Alright, so it's the next day now, and coat 2 of lacquer has had overnight to dry, and I gotta tell you, it's looking freaking awesome. It's a little bit orange peely right now, but it's coat number 2, and I'm gonna be wet sanding everything flat anyway, so it's looking really good. So I'm probably gonna do another couple of coats today. Maybe 3 today, and then let it dry really good and knock it down flat, and then maybe some light coats after that. But it's looking good. The spraying is going well. I've got my gun set really nice. I'm liking that. Working out my process. It's working out pretty good. It's looking pretty good. So we're gonna get ready for coat number 3 next. Alright, that was coat number 3. We, real quickly, I didn't do it on camera, I should have, but we put a quick little scuff sanding with 400 grit on it, and then tacked it off nice. That last coat was really nice. It went on well where I needed it to. I got a lot of the lower stuff out that didn't quite make it on the last time. It wasn't quite as thick as it could have been in every area on the second coat, so this kind of corrected that. We're ready for coat number 4, and it's looking good. It's looking real good. So coat number 4 next time. All right. Alright, that was coat number 4. This is about to become coat number 5. It's really looking good. This is the last, I think this might be the last one I do. Maybe I'll do a couple more. Coat number 5, I'll lay it on reasonably well, and then we'll start to sand it. We'll leave it, and it'll start to get drying. Yeah, this is starting to look freaking fantastic. I think 5. I think we'll stop at 5. It's already looking great. I might put more when I finish flattening it out, but yeah, we're gonna do a 5th coat here, and then it sits for 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. You guys will be caught up on video by now. By the time you see this, you'll be about as real time as it can get. So yeah, let's spray coat 5. Alright, well, that was coat number 5, and we're going to call it enough. So it looks fantastic. We have to let it cure for a while before I can flatten it. It's got orange peel, but that's what happens when you spray. It's sort of on purpose, I guess, in a way. It's how it works. But with the lacquer, you let it sit for, according to the instructions, for 21 days to cure. So that's 3 weeks out. Part 40 just published about half an hour, 45 minutes ago. So if that gives you any indication about how long it has been, by the time you see this, today is August 1st, so wow, I started this in November. This is taking a while. Probably could have gotten it quicker, but I was experimenting and learning and redoing a few pieces, but by the time you see the next time, we're just probably going to cut to the next moment, but the next moment will have had a 3-week period go by, and I'll wet sand all of the orange peel out, wet sand it flat, and I'll wet sand it flat, and then it'll probably get at least one more, maybe two more coats of fairly thin down lacquer to flow out nicely, and then it'll get rubbed out. I might, or it'll look, if I can get it to lay down flat, I may not need the splashy coats, the skim coats, but the spit coats or whatever they call them, the thin final coats, these might be it, and then it'll be buffing and polishing. So this project's going on a hanger for 3 weeks. You won't see it, but I won't be looking at it. I won't be dealing with it or doing anything to it for a few weeks. Yeah, so it's a bit of hurry up and wait now until it gets a chance to cure. So we'll bring you back when that's time.